I am Ann-Peggy Divine. Welcome to the Divine Design, the podcast where we unfold heaven on earth and reframe spirituality and theology for a new cosmic era. Your journey on human evolution and integration of your divine design starts here. Welcome, Charlotte Rørth from Denmark.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are an author and you are studying theology.
No, I'm studying to become a priest.
You're studying to become a priest?
I'm not studying theology. I have not gone to the university. I have written 6 books on theology and 6 books on faith, Christian faith, and therefore the bishop in the area where I live wanted me to become a priest or a pastor or vicar or whatever name you choose. And so when I wrote him that I would like to become a priest, he said, yes, of course. And then he has educated me. He's given me different writings to do, different books to read. And then I've been examined by 2 professors from the universities of Copenhagen and Aarhus.
Wow.
And then I right now am doing the 6-month study, which is not a study, but more like a practical part of the education to become a priest, alongside people who have studied theology or and have had other ways into this job, just like mine.
Yes.
So I'm not a university student. I've not gone to the university, and that's it makes me very different. I'm the only one who hasn't done that, and it's not normal in Denmark, but it is possible.
It is possible.
Yeah.
Yes. And what did you do before you started this path?
I've been a reporter for 42 years, a journalist. I'm educated as a journalist and have worked as a journalist, as a business journalist for many years, as a cultural journalist. I have been an editor in the media world, doing both radio, television, web, print, paper, whatever, anything, and have done many big projects, cross-media projects, and also organized literature festivals and a lot of things like that.
Wow.
But many things took a big turn when things started happening for me in 2008, and since then my life has gone in a different direction.
Yeah, maybe you can start with 2008. What happened?
Well, I was in Spain doing a story on olive oil. Olive oil is a wonderful topic and an interesting topic. And we were a group of journalists who were there from Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, and invited by the Spanish state, the Organization for Tourism of the Spanish state. So they wanted to have a focus on olive oil. So it was like, yeah, how can you say? It was a normal thing for me to do stories from Spain. I've done a lot of travel journalism. And I was interested in this topic, but I was very much in a work mode. I mean, and we were all journalists and we were busy. It was a very busy schedule for those 3 or 4 days we were there. So we were all, running around with our little notepads and our little pens and being very serious. And a couple of things happened during that stay that altered my life. First of all, in a little church, a woman came up to me, and I'd never met her before. I hadn't been to this part of Spain before. It's the northern part of the southern part of Spain, the high mountains in Andalusia, where all the olive trees grow.
Yeah.
And this lady came up to me and told me I was a chosen one, and told me that I was to tell the story of the Armageddon, and only the people with the correct faith or the right religion would survive. And she asked me what my job was, and I said I was a journalist. And she said, wow, fine, bien, good. And then she asked me if I worked on television, and I didn't at that time. And I said, no, I'm not a television journalist. Oh, that's not good, she said. And then she left, and I've never talked to her since. I don't know her name, and I have no idea why she picked me out of the crowd. And it was such a weird experience because at that time, I had no interest in religion, no interest in spirituality. I was raised in an academic environment on the left wing, politics. My father and mother were very active in politics. I went to a socialist private school, an elite school for red families. And I had always been a member of the Danish church. We have a very high membership, about 75% now, a little lower now, but when I was a child, it was about 80 or 85% of us were members. And most of them are cultural Christians, as we call them. And I was that too. I sort of approved of the values of the Protestant religion, of the Lutheran evangelical Christianity. I approved of all the values, that we're all equal for God being the main one, and the other one that we're loved. And I had never sort of questioned this. I'd never had any interest in my own faith, my personal faith. I have never been interested in supernatural things. I've never had any weird dreams or any longing. You know, there are many people that talk about longings. I've never had it. I've never had any spiritual longing, because the second I had that longing, it was fulfilled, which is quite amazing.
Yes.
The second day, something else happened, which was it was very determining for me, but I didn't know at that time. We were in another church, the group of journalists, and we were being lectured by a guide. And while we were standing there in the group, we were in a sacristy next to a chapel that it was being used, or still is being used, as a church. So grand, very beautiful place in Ubeda. And I knew when I was standing there that I'd had a hemorrhage in my brain. My father's a doctor, so I knew this is what is happening. That my blood felt warmer. I felt something running out from my head through my whole body, and I knew that I was going to die. I also felt numb, paralyzed. I couldn't move, but I was so happy. I was immensely happy. I felt filled with love. I was sure this was just the right place for me. I was at my space, my room, my time, my zero, my nucleo of my life. That was just there, this place and at this time. So I was just happy. I was just standing there smiling, and I couldn't move. So the rest of the group left. And then the guide came back to fetch me, and he stopped in the doorway and looked at me really bewildered and said, "Why is there such a light around you?" And I couldn't see any light. And I just asked him, the only thing that was on my mind is, why can't I move? And it's not that I thought he would have an answer. I mean, why would he be able to answer that? But he just replied with yet the same question once again: why is there such a light around you? And I just asked question once again: why can't I move? And then he came over behind me, put his arms around my shoulder, and then I could walk. And in the evening, after a long, very busy, very intense day on an olive farm and olive tasting and dining and wine and so on, we sat down and talked. And it wasn't a long talk, it wasn't a long conversation, but that conversation became a blueprint for the way that I have lived with my spiritual experiences since, the way I have communicated about them. And one of the main mission that I've had since this day in November 2008 is that we are to talk about the spiritual experiences that we have, but we need a different kind of conversation than we have when we talk about politics or football or gardening or whatever we talk about. We need to have a conversation that is filled with love, with consideration. It's a fragile conversation with two fragile partners. Whether you have a spiritual experience or not, it's you have to be very delicate in the way that you talk. You have to realize that this is of great importance to the person that has had the experience, but also the person that is listening.
Yeah.
Because it crosses boundaries that we're not used to cross.
Yes.
And we just sat there, the two of us. He'd had this experience of watching the light around me, and I had had the experience of being paralyzed and filled with love. And we talked about it. And we didn't know each other. We hadn't met before, just the day before, right when the trip started. And he's my very, very close friend and has been like my life witness since. But that was just the beginning. But it started there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's such a synchronicity because I just come out of a ceremony weekend with several women, and we have spoken about just what you have spoken about, how this divinity take over and when the light is in us, and to have a vocabulary and a language for it, because it can be frightening for someone. And I have worked in the psychiatry several years, and I have seen a lot of people have an epiphany, and kind of the light is coming, and at the same time it's like they are the light, they are kind of God, I am Jesus, I am all this light. And at the same time this condemning voice, I also call it, so it is kind of a crash inside. So they feel like God, but then it is a crash of emotion. It's the condemning voice and the God voice, kind of. And we, a lot of times we just drug it because we are afraid of what happens when people say, I'm Jesus, I'm God. We are not Jesus, we are not God, but it can feel like we are. But I have met a lot of example, like people say, I am Jesus, I am God, but it's their expression of this divinity. They don't understand how can we put it in words, so they use the language, I am God. Because, and also when you are in this place state, you cannot condemn anything because everything is so beautiful. It is a totally different space, as you also speak about. So yes, we need a language, and we need to talk about this and find a middle language, or I don't know what we what we need. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I've written 6 books about it.
Yeah.
So I don't only think and I don't only talk, I also write, and I've given 400 talks,
Ah, wow.
400 lectures about this. So, but this was only the beginning. I had 18 months and with different spiritual experiences, and I never ever heard a condemning voice, neither in myself nor in others. And I was very lucky to not have been raised in a Christian environment.
Yeah.
So I had no picture of what God was supposed to be like. I had no expectations. I couldn't pray. I knew nothing. I'd only gone to church for Christmas or Easter, and only very rarely. I've never condemned Christianity. I'm not a condemning type. I'm not a woman filled with blame. I have a lot of guilt, but I don't blame people. And so that has made the crash that you talk about. I haven't had that.
Wow. Yeah.
So the first book, I know it's normal, and a lot of people that come on my retreat have had this very, very harsh journey, a very troublesome journey
Yep.
from a condemning God towards a loving God. But I haven't had that. I've had no hang-ups with God at all. So I'm free. And I don't have, my language is my language as a journalist. And the way I write about these experiences, and my book is out in 6 different countries, 6 different languages, and also it's coming out in English next year. My language is, I mean, a reporter's language. So I try to write about this in a very daily, everyday manner that everybody can understand and that everybody can talk. And that way, I'm trying to make these experiences as democratically accessible as they are. Because, I mean, half of us, if you ask people, half of us have spiritual experiences.
Yes.
And I've written a book about that with a lot of research and a lot of experts. And it's such a normal thing to have these experiences, but it's difficult for us to talk about because our language tends to get hijacked by different movements, either a New Age movement or a certain kind of Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever.
Yep.
So it's difficult for people to talk.
Yes.
So the way I did it was to make it very, very concrete. I had, when I came back from Spain from that olive oil tour, everybody said I was looking great and I was really happy. And I started losing weight. I lost 20 kilos within a few months, and I was immensely happy. And a week after I came home, I had a Paul experience. I was struck by lightning from above and thrown to the ground and fainted. And when I arose from the ground, I that's where all my spiritual longing was fulfilled, because I knew that it was the light of God that had hit me. And I knew that God existed, and I knew that I was loved by God. And these things are immensely big. But there were two parts of this that were really difficult for me and that demanded all my intelligence and all my many years of reflection. One is that I've been brought up academically. So I've been brought up to be in control of my own learning. Um, I've taken responsibility as a woman to educate myself, but I've also, not chosen, but I've read the books in front of me and learned what was in them. I've learned from conversations, but I've sort of been in charge of what happened. But this knowledge that God exists is is in my brain in the same way that knowledge about math or about geography, but it was not put in there in the same manner. It was put in there by God. So it was like just injected into me or pushed or whatever, a very, very, actually almost violent, right? Because I was faint, I was thrown to the ground, and it happened right next to my house, only a couple of meters from my house. As I was walking the dog. And the other thing that was really difficult because my whole way of being in life changed and had to change.
Yeah.
And that had actually nothing to do with what was in the experiences. It's the way that experiences are put into our lives. And we rarely talk about that. We mostly tend to talk about God and fairies and what angels or whatever, but just take a step back and talk about what is the construction of spiritual experiences.
Yep.
And the construction does something to us too, because it undermines the academic knowledge system that we live by.
Yes.
And that was one thing that took a lot of reflection and that I write about in my book, and the first book. And the other thing was that it might not be difficult, neither then nor today, to talk about God. I mean, it is, of course, difficult for many people, but it's been acknowledged for many years in
Yes.
any society that God exists. So coming out and saying that I know God exists is sort of like a phrase that, well, so what? I mean, people wouldn't react and it would be acceptable. But what was difficult for me here is well, I knew that God exists from that second on. It was a knowledge, fixed knowledge inside me, which cannot be taken out because I don't know how it got in, so I don't know how to take it out logically. But that's not the difficult part. The difficult part is that after that second, after that stroke of lightning, I know that God knows that I exist. And that's a different thing. And that is really difficult. That I know that
Big.
God,
That is big to
that
hear
is that
that.
is that is the amazing part, that I know that God knows that I exist.
Yep.
Because that's a different kind of relation.
Yes.
It's a relation that begins with God and not with me. And that is something that traditional religion doesn't, even though Christianity is built around this, it's a concept that is very difficult for all kinds of religions to talk about because it empowers people so strongly and it disempowers the organizations, whether they're in New Age or in traditional religion, doesn't matter. It disempowers every priest, every bishop, every spiritual leader of any kind. And that is not something that they like.
I love what you say. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's not. I'm not saying it because you love it. I'm saying it because it's what happened.
I know. I know.
Very, very logical person. And I'm used to, fact checking things and writing things as a journalist. And that's what I did with the book.
can I add something with the lightning? I don't know if you know this, but I have been lead. I have surrendered my ego, so I was leaded into 2 different shamanic paths. And in the shamanic path, the original belief is that when you are hit by lightning, you are kind of chosen to do something. I didn't know it because I have also been hit by lightning, and it kind of we were in a big group, a lot of people, and I fainted and was out, and then they took me back, and I had no idea. But it is kind of a sign when you go in shamanism. So you find a lot of this, the same as the church stands for, and other religion in also shamanism. So I don't know if you have heard that in shamanism they say that, okay, if you are struck by lightning, it is kind of an invitation to something bigger.
I'm not more important than any other person.
No, that wasn't what I meant. Yeah, sorry.
All religions have these experiences in their midst. Every single religion that is known to mankind has these kind of spiritual experiences, whether you call it shamanism or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all has these same different kind of experiences. What my book is about is, how do you live with this in the society that I am part of? How do I combine my life here with the spiritual experiences? And I, of course, did, with my logic, I went to the church around the corner because I needed to combine my cultural heritage, my geographical heritage, and everything into this. So that's the path that I chose. I oppose very strongly to the words chosen because they always get, just let me finish, because they always get misunderstood. I am very, very aware of using language that does not differ me from other people, because I know better than anyone else that I'm no different than other people. We're all different, of course. But that is extremely important. And that's an important part of the message, is that I always try to use a language that bonds people together instead of lifting people apart. And I use the word lifting because a lot of people have approached me and said, well, I've experienced also being a chosen one. And this is what the lady said to me. But I'm not a chosen one in being someone special. I'm just chosen to whatever I can do, as everybody else is chosen to whatever they can do.
Yes.
So, but I oppose very strongly to use those words because they can be misunderstood. And there's no reason to use the words that can be misunderstood if you can find other words. So that's what I've been trying to do, is to find other words so we don't talk about this in hierarchical terms, or terms that can be misunderstood as hierarchical, because that is a danger in every religion.
Yes.
And that's really important to me, because what happens with the experiences is that after this meeting with God's light, I had dreams that led me back to Ubada. And I went to Ubada, and I hadn't prepared anything. I hadn't done any research because I did not know what this was. I had no idea that these things were connected. I had no interest in learning that I was special because the experience themselves told me that everybody was loved.
Yep.
And that's what God showed me. And then I went to Spain in February 2009, sat down on a bench in the sacristy where I first was paralyzed and where I felt so happy, and sat down on the bench, and Jesus appeared in front of me and talked to me for 20 minutes. And then that's where the book I wrote the book called I Met Jesus, because it's such a concrete, strong story with a human figure that is very, very easy to communicate in a very individualized society that we live in. We communicate via persons. I mean, even artificial intelligence tries to make persons because that's the way we most easily communicate, right?
Yeah.
But these meetings with Jesus, I had one a year later also, that sort of closed this process down. These were significant and important, but the other experiences were very important too. And I had more experiences with the lightning and with fainting and with shaking and with rays coming out of my fingers and seeing auras. And you bring it on. And it's, I mean, you can call it a Kundalini awakening, whatever,
Yeah.
if you use that language,
Yeah.
but you can also call it a spiritual process.
Yeah.
And that's, a lot of people have it. What is interesting is that you can sort of state that a lot of people have it. What's interesting is how we live with it.
Yes.
What do we do with these experiences? And I chose to live with it as a reporter, as a journalist. I chose to democratize it,
Yes.
to open it up to people, to make it accessible, and also to give people responsibilities. If half of us have these experiences, then we need to help each other. We need to talk about it.
Yes.
So that's the way I have lived with it, and done so in a very Nordic way.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very glad that you said that. I agree with you. No one is more special than other. And for a long period, I spoke about we self-choose. So we self-choose. So we are always invited. So
I
what
don't understand. Self-choose, what is that?
I call it, instead of saying you are the chosen one, I said we can self-choose what path do we want to go on.
I'm not sure we can do that. I
So
didn't choose any of these experiences. Never had any longing for any of this to happen. Never, ever. And then it happened. And a lot of people get the experiences. I mean, when they're in need of comfort, like the near-death experiences, and that or other crises. And but I didn't. I was in part of my life where I was really happy. The boys were well. I was married. I'm still married, and we lived in the countryside. I had a nice job. I was in a very stable part of my life. So there was no outer reason for me to get these experiences. They were not given to me as comfort.
but do you don't think that you could have said no?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Because I have met people that are invited that have this experience, don't know, they say, I'm afraid because it is our programming, working as a therapist and with deep trauma. So what I hear, I don't say this is the one correct way, but it's like you were more in the balance point. You didn't have a lot of trauma and came from judgment or something, as you said. So it was easier for you. But a lot of people have this experience, but they have so much trauma and are so programmed that this they say no to the invitation.
Okay, yeah. Well, I haven't talked to people who've had traumas about these experiences in any professional way. But so I can't contribute to anything about that.
Yeah, so when I hear you, I think you are the first I heard about that came with this experience with no trauma. I think you are the first.
Well,
Actually, yeah.
I haven't met people with big traumas that have had experiences. I've had a lot of people that write to me. I still get mails every day, and I've had gotten mails for 10 years now every day
Yeah.
from people that have had experiences. And a lot of people are just like me.
Yeah.
People that have experiences when they're in trauma or in treatment or in they are helped. They get therapists. They are and in many ways, I don't know if it helps them or not. There are so many stories in every kind of direction,
Yeah.
but what I have focused on is what I know, and I know how to write about these things so that it makes it accessible for people and acceptable.
Yeah.
Because you cannot accept something that you don't understand if you can't even talk about it. And what I have, what I think I have done is normalize these experiences, and actually sometimes to a level that they're not even sort of kind of weird or wild anymore. And that's been a huge effort, and I'm really glad it's helped, and people talk a lot more openly about experiences now.
Yes.
I've never seen, I haven't seen experiences as sort of something that you can say no to, and I haven't heard about people that have said no. They haven't contacted me. That I've heard have had a lot of letters from people that have had experiences in the past but haven't talked about it, or have talked to their family about it and they didn't understand, or to a priest that didn't understand. And but I have just tried to tell them that the most important part is to talk to your close family and to talk to your priest, because you need to let the people that love you know what's going on if it's important to you. And the second part is, if you can't talk to your family about this, then there's something else wrong with the relation. It doesn't have anything to do with God. It has to do with love. And then you have to talk to a priest. And if the first priest you talk to is not nice, then go to the next one. Because you have to find yourself as being part of a bigger story. You're not only in your own story. You have to go into the human story. And that is extremely important. And I don't care what kind of priest people talk to. And I'm not sort of telling them to do this or that or that. I've never done that, but I've just shown what I've done.
Yes.
I've always been a member of the Danish Evangelical Lutheran Church. And there's a fine room for me. I mean, they've always treated me very well and have not acknowledged me. And I've been to 250 Danish churches doing talks. And so I've had no conflicts about these things. And I think that's very important to stress, because it's very easy to victimize people that have had experiences and have had difficulties in talking about them, but it also pacifies them. If you victimize them too much, it pacifies them. And I want to empower them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to tell them that, well, if the first priest is an idiot, then find another one. I mean, you have to stand up for God and say, well, I want to talk about God and what's happened to me.
Yes.
And then you have to look for people that want to talk in a decent manner. And there are many people that are really kind and good.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what I hear is like you are coming from kind of a more acceptance background. So I have worked most.
No, I haven't had any background in Christianity. It's not a acceptance background. It's a very, very secular background.
Yes, I heard what you said, but when I talk about the people I have worked with, it's more, when I say trauma, it's not, it doesn't have to be big traumas. I think I speak about the way we are programmed, the way we think. And in Norway, I think you talk about it in Denmark too, this jantelov, the law of jante.
Yeah.
It gives us a certain way of thinking.
It was written in Denmark.
Yeah.
He was Norwegian, but he lived in Denmark when he wrote it.
Yeah. And this gives us a programming, and when they start to talk about God, some of them is going into psychiatry. That's what the people I have met, some of the people I have met. So I work with this programming to kind of integrate this experience in the body, not only intellectual, because you say it is an experience and it does something with you, and it can be hard to integrate it, to live from that.
Well, I'm sure I fully agree. What I think is important is that if half of us have experiences, then we don't all have traumas. We don't all need psychiatric or therapeutic treatment. And that's where my focus has been. My focus has been on the normalization of these experiences, that it is normal to have a communication with God, that God wants us so much and wants a relationship with us so much that he keeps on talking and touching and moving and showing himself for people, everybody, everywhere. And that's really important for me, not to make it into something to a big drama, because it's not necessarily a big drama. One of the most beautiful stories that I've heard was from she was a widower when she wrote it, that she was sitting in her room or in her kitchen having a mug of coffee, and her husband was lying in the bed in their bedroom. He was dying, and she was, of course, devastated. And then she felt a hand on her shoulder, and she knew instantly it was Jesus, and she felt comforted, and that helped her through her husband's illness and his death. That's very calm, quiet, very normal spiritual experiences. And that's what I've wanted to focus on. And that's because that's what I can do. I'm not a therapist, and I don't know anything. I do know a lot. As a journalist, you know a little bit about everything, but I would never ever go and act as a therapist or as a psychiatrist or anything, because I'm not. I'm a communicator, and I think it's important at least to acknowledge that spiritual experiences don't always come from trauma, and they don't always cause trauma. And I think the more we talk about them, the more open we are about it, the more people can sort of integrate them in their normal lives,
Yes.
which I think is in my mission, and to see it as part of, well, part of everyday life, like sunshine or flowers.
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's why I think your story and what you have experienced is so powerful and amazing. And I will definitely read your books because I haven't. We have.
They're very easy to read, and they're in Norwegian. It was the first one was published very shortly after it was published in Denmark, was published in Norway very shortly after, and it's very easily read.
Yeah, and we have a common friend, Helge Hognestad, who have worked as a priest, and he said you should definitely talk to Charlotte Rørth. And I said, okay, yes.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think he's in my second book. Yeah, I've met him quite a few times. Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. Me studying theology brought me to Helge.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think it's just, I think sometimes it can be sort of like also the backside of, or the flip side of talking so in such a daily manner about experiences is, of course, that people can think, well, do you take out the holiness of it? Do you take out this extraordinary feeling of love? Does it disappear in these everyday words that I have? And I sometimes think they do. And now, as I'm studying to become a priest, what I can see is that my language is not poetic. Um, it's not even clerical. It's not even priest-like. It's a very everyday language. So I need to rely on something else to create those moments in church that I want to give people, because I want to give people a sense of holiness. I want to give people a sense of this being a place where they can bring in the whole self,
yeah,
the heart, their souls, their bodies, whatever. And I can't do that with my language. So I have to rely on the rituals, I have to rely on the architecture, the arts, and I have to rely on the music. So I have to rely on other people, which I think is a gift that I don't can't give it all myself. And I think that's really important, because I need to not be self-absorbed in order to give people what I want to give them.
and that you come from that because I hear and you have kind of a humble approach and just being humble and kind of I become in the meeting with you, kind of we become together.
But that's not a humble approach. That is what the experiences gave me. They gave me humility.
Yeah,
They gave me that I am one among others, and that is the greatness of being a human being,
yeah,
that we're all one in God,
yeah,
but that we're all one in God. It's not that every one of us is one in God, but we're all together one in God. And that's a different way of looking at it. And that's I've been just as vain. I'm still as vain as everybody else. I want to look good. I want to wear nice clothes. I want to buy new shirts or whatever. I want to look pretty. And I'm vain too.
yeah.
But the moment I start talking about faith, the moment I start talking about God, I can't. I get nauseous if I do so. So I have a lot of biological reactions if I cross the line.
Yeah.
If I become self-absorbed, or if I read somebody who is it, I get I get nausea. I get nauseous. I even thrown up by some books, especially right after the meetings with Jesus or during that process. There were a lot of books I couldn't read.
Yeah.
And I tried reading them and I just threw up and I had to put them away. It was really strong. It's a very, yeah, not even bodily, but biological
Yeah, 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 yeah,
reaction.
yeah,
And I think I have, of course, as a journalist, I focus on language. I mean, of course, I focus on words.
Yes.
And I've been stricken by how few want to write about these experiences in a way that is understandable for others. Most of the people that write about spirituality write for themselves. They write because they want to express exactly how they feel and what they have experienced. But that doesn't matter, whatever they have experienced, if they're not accepted by the people who read it, if they cannot understand what you write.
That's true.
And that is the main problem for all this, and the main problem for this whole part of religions, right? I mean, about, you know yourself, people write about their spiritual experiences, and when you've read the first 10 of them, you say, look, they're just too much. The words take over, they become too colorful, too grand. They disturb when you read them, like there's no room for you as a reader. I mean, they try to sort of seduce you into something. And I think that's part of the reason that a lot of people reject talking about this, because the language that is mostly being used, and that is mostly by New Age, is so it's too much, as we would say in Danish. It's too embroidered.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a point there. Yeah.
It's because it's my field, the language, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Writing or the speaking of it.
Yeah.
And then within the different religions or different spiritual directions, they have each their own vocabulary, right? Is what you call it. Do
Yeah.
we call it spirit? Do we call it God? How do you say the light? What about love? And so on. So you use the words in a specific manner. And it's the same in Norwegian as in Danish. I've been to Norway many times, so it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
That way that it's in every country.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I love about everything that we spoke about is like you come from the balance point, and it is. I this Divine Design podcast, a lot of them are in this balance point, but I haven't spoken with so much people that are really into Christianity from this balance point. So that has been a challenge, and also studying theology. I have seen a lot of, or I have listened, and we want to all of us to do good, but the old Christianity has been hierarchical. It's like one, yeah. So you are the first that is so balanced, or not? Yeah, Helge also. I think Helge Hognestad is very balanced, and you are balanced, and some of us are balanced, but mostly it has been very hierarchical. And actually, when we are into that, we just got a new bishop here in Tromsø, and it's Stig Legne, and he's amazing. I was so I actually prayed for him, and I sent him a lot of healing, and then I was so glad. And he is a priest of the people.
Yeah. But you'll only have him for 6 years. It's not a long time.
Yeah, but he can do so much in 6 years. I'm sure he will do so much amazing in 6 years. Yeah.
But about the hierarchical way of thinking, I think a lot more of the New Age is hierarchical than we think.
Yes,
And I
that's
think
true.
that's something that many spiritual directions try to hide.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge danger. And most of the books that I've thrown up over have been books by new so-called spiritual leaders, because they built new hierarchies.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they built new, I mean, and I've been really shocked about it. And what I've been mostly shocked about was the way that people can't see it. I mean, that people get lured. They get drawn into a scheme of a lot of money and a lot of trips and a lot of different leaderships telling them to do this and do that. And it's also been, how do I navigate in this? What do I do? How do I it took many years before I started holding retreats because I rejected, I don't want to take that role. And then when I've been, doing so many talks and doing retreats for the last 10 years, and my retreats are not focused on how good I am, but focused on the people that come.
Yeah.
And if people come and say that they want a conversation with me, they want to be my new best friend, and we have so much in common, and they want a personal relationship, I have to say no,
Yeah.
because I'm not interesting. I'm just one of millions and millions of people that have had these experiences. So
Yeah.
I'm not interesting. But it's such an easy way to build up your life if you find an idol or find someone to look up to and then just copycat or make a close relation. And that's completely in contrast to what I write in my books and what I state what is important to me and what these experiences gave to me. So there is a lot of work to be done, a lot of places in empowering people in their own right and in their own relationship to God, not via some spiritual leader or a priest. And now, as I'm studying to become a priest, and I'll be finished by Christmas, I of course have had many thoughts about how am I going to what am I going to do? How will I do this? And I'm extremely relieved that I am in a big church. It's been very important to me that the Danish popular church is a very broad church. There are vicars or priests in my church that do not want female priests, which I of course think is unbiblical, but I'm in a way I'm happy that they're in my church too. And
Yeah.
I have gay priests and lesbian priests also in the same church, and they have to be alongside each other.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important because that is a Christian message in itself. And it's the
Yeah.
same with the Norwegian church.
Yeah.
And it's also almost the same in Sweden, but not as much because they have, after it's not a state church anymore, they've divided into different fractions. And it's what's happening in Norway as well.
Yes.
And the Norwegian church, as I see it, is trying to embrace diversity by choosing the bishops, by choosing Sunniva in Oslo also.
Yes.
Sunniva
Yes.
Gruva, who had this much wonderful sermon when she was set in as a bishop, where she talked about spiritual experiences and talked about them being the nucleo of the Christian religion also, so that she wanted to embrace them and wanted to be open about them, which was a huge step. But
Yes.
that's also a way of broadening the church, which
Yes.
I think is good.
Yeah.
But some people find frightening because it's not as fixed as a sort of as, how do you say it, as what's the right word? Because I don't want to say anything negative, but it's not as safe as it is when you know exactly what's right or wrong. When it's more open, it's more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, so in Christianity, it happens a lot. So what we're talking about now, you do is comparing the Norwegian and the Danish. I don't know so much about the Swedish and the Finnish, but it is happening really a shift in Norway and Denmark.
Yeah. There's a lot happening in Norway right now, and then there are a lot of different movements. We also have this huge movement within Denmark and Norway, and also England and Germany and so on, with the young men that tend to claim a much more conservative Christianity, and they have a lot of followers. And that's part of the movement that President Trump also has supported. And that's a strong movement even in the Nordic countries,
Okay.
which is extremely interesting and extremely important because for me, there needs to be a different voice than theirs. And there needs to be a much more feminine voice and a voice focused on natality and not on what we are to gain by being wealthy. It has in its core the I don't know what the word in Norwegian is, but when you are a Christian and if you do good, then it's God's will that you do good. And which is a very, very harsh and very unloving way to be a Christian. And that is what forms part of this new, very, very hard, masculine, and very strong movement right now in Norway also. And it's called a new awakening also, almost, at least in Norway.
Yeah, and we see what we are talking about is like the tension is building up in so many systems, in the Christianity and health system. So the tension is building up from different angles.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will balance out.
I don't know if there's more tension now that there has been, but at least the good thing about it is that people talk more about faith and spirituality now than they have for the last 10 or 20 or 30 years.
That's
So
true.
that topic has come into the conversation, which is I think is basically a good thing. I mean, so we at least have talked about it. And you have a prime minister that openly declares that he's a Christian and that his faith is important to him. And we have also a prime minister here in Denmark that says that we need to talk more about spirituality and faith than we have before.
Yes.
I think that's positive, even though they might not understand the same as I do, and they might not be exactly the same Christian the same way that I am or whatever. The conversation is the important part.
Yes. Yes.
You have that too in Norway. Yeah.
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 Wow, I'm fascinated of the way this conversation turned because I know you have written the book about your conversation with Jesus, so I thought that we will talk mostly about Jesus and what that does with us.
But this is talk about Jesus.
Yeah, it is.
This is talking about Jesus. This is talking about the change that Jesus makes in people.
Yeah.
He makes people think about the society where they live.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is not something that happened 2,000 years ago.
No.
Jesus is what's happening now. How
Yeah.
do you take Christian responsibility for the life you are living with other people?
Yes.
So trying to open up conversations about Christianity is one way of taking responsibility. Being a priest is another, being a nurse or an architect or whatever.
Yes.
But he's really, really harsh on these disciples that they have to think for themselves
Yes.
and they have to take responsibility. So we are talking about Jesus.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I couldn't understand the words that Jesus said because I think he spoke in Aramaic, but I don't know because I don't know the language and nobody speaks it exactly the way that they think Jesus did. But he talked to me in a way that he would have talked to anybody else.
Yes.
And he showed me that he saw me as a human being, not as someone special, not as a woman, not as an older woman, not as anything, just as a human being.
Yeah.
And when I met him the second time, I'd had a year with all these experiences and I was just worn out. I was still happy and I had decided that I don't even remember taking the decision that I wanted to live with my experiences in the life that I already had because there was nothing wrong with that life. I mean, there's always something wrong with my husband, but never mind, that's another. But then after a year with so many experiences, I was mentally just I was not afraid to go crazy, but in a way I was, not because I was feeling insecure or unloved, but because my head just couldn't hold anymore. I was afraid to explode inside.
Yeah.
And so when I met him the second time in January 2010, I communicated to him this very direct answer, in fact, actually demand, what am I to do? I mean, give me a list to tell me what to do. I mean, point it out to me so I can act correctly, so I can be a good girl and behave as I should. And he just laughed at me, smiled at me, and said, I trust in you. And that is what Jesus does. He trusts us to do the right thing. He trusts us because we're the ones that live the lives that we have.
Yeah.
And that is what we're supposed to do. So it's in that way, I could, of course, I can talk for hours and hours about how it was to sit there and just look Jesus in the eye, but that's not important. The important thing is, so what? How do I take this gift into the world? How do I share it with the world? And that's not by reliving those moments over and over again. It's by making these moments do a difference for other people.
Yes. And you are talking about how you communicate with Jesus, and I have met Jesus a lot of time, and it's very experiential, because when I ask Jesus and then I feel it on my body, so the answer I get, it is kind of an experience, so I feel it, not so much in my head, but I really feel it. And if it's not there and then it comes very close into the, so, but I think that Jesus meet us in the way we are.
Yeah, well, he stands here.
Yeah.
And my son, who died 10 years ago, stands here. And sometimes people see them. I don't. I never see them. I just know they're there.
Yeah.
And that's I'm a very concrete, logical, practical, down-to-earth person. So there might have been an angel at some time that has caressed me or something, but I wouldn't have noticed it because I'm so practical, right? So I also needed, I sometimes say that I'm extremely stupid because I needed so many experiences of so many different kinds in order to really get what this is all about. I mean, other people, they understand with just a very small, delicate experience, right? And I just needed, full hammer, a lot of stuff. But we're just different.
We're just distant, and that's what I want. You say they are standing here. I feel them, but I feel them in my heart. So I don't feel them as standing, but I feel in my heart. I also have my son. He also died 10 years ago, and Jesus. So it is different if they stand. So it is kind of fitting our system. When we had the conversation, my heart is open. It's so open. It's like, wow, there are so much divinity here.
Yeah. Well, I think what has been difficult for me now that I'm going to be a priest is that I'm going to be a representative of a system also, right? So the people that have aggressions towards the Lutheran Evangelical Church or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Denmark will also have aggressions towards me. Where I have been during the last 10 years, I've been on my own playing field, right? And I almost only met people that wanted to meet me because they would come to my talks or they would write me. So I haven't been in enemy surroundings. And I will be as a priest because I'm wearing the cloak. We still wear the black cloak, which is horrible, but so that is going to be different for me. And I still don't know exactly how I will cope with it because I get hurt, even though I'm as hurt as I can be. As you know, also having lost your son, is that the pain is so immense that I don't think there is more pain in the world, but there is. And I don't know if I can cope with it. I don't know, but I think I can. I think this is the right decision, and it's the first decision I've taken completely on my own, which is not on my own, which is in prayer. The other important decisions I've taken in life, I've always taken with my husband in conversation with him, in a dialogue. But I didn't with this. It felt wrong to include him into that decision. So I was just on my own here in my room, and I came down the next morning and I was shaking and almost crying. And I said to my husband, I want to study to become a priest. And then he says, well, okay, we'll do that.
And also you have the gift of writing, as you say. So what happens when you go into this role and you say maybe it will be difficult, you can put it out in a balanced way and kind of helping the system. You are a big helper for the system because we know that it has been very hierarchical, and you are not. You are in a balance point. So this is what we need.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's also, of course, what I've talked to Helga about, and also Jo Helge, the other Helga. And I've talked to many of my Norwegian friends about this, is what are priests to do today. But I think many priests do that. I think there are so many good priests. I've met so many interesting people in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Germany, wherever.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of change going on from beneath, right? It's not change, but it's also changing in the top, at least in Norway, but also here we have the bishop that I had is really a great person, and it's doing, I think there's a great change going on within the churches right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful to talk to you from Norway, even though we speak English. It feels a bit weird, but still, but still, I think it's also interesting to see the very close relation between our countries, right? When you travel in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, of course there are differences, but there's also so much we have in common.
So much.
Yeah.
Wow, Charlotte, thank you so much. I love this conversation, and thank you for saying yes to this.
Well, thank you, sir, to having me. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Divine Design podcast with Ann-Peggy Divine. Join us next Sunday for another heaven on earth unfolding conversation. With grace, reverence, and unity, may the path of your divine design light the way. From the divine in us to the divine in you.